Number 5 on this list is the purple golf cart. Never would I have thought that a purple golf cart would be so scary, but in this case, it absolutely is. Jeremy is a 31-year-old man who just over a decade ago lost his father. On the day that his father died, though, he received a crazy message, one that haunts him to this day. It was early in the morning and Jeremy was on his way to work. His phone rang. It was an unknown caller. Jeremy picked it up anyways. He said hello, but at first the line was flat. He could tell that somebody was on the other end, but they didn't say anything back at all. He said hello again and nothing. Just as he was about to hang up, a muffled voice that sounded very similar to his father's spoke up. His father's voice was soft and there was something wrong. It almost felt as if his father was being forced to speak. He told Jeremy to beware the purple golf cart and that if he saw it, it meant that he was going to go straight to hell. Then, before Jeremy could ask any questions, a loud, maniacal laugh was heard over the receiver and the phone hung up. Obviously, he was pretty freaked out at this point, so he quickly dialed up his dad. No answer though. Then he called his mom. When she picked up, she was in tears. She told him that she was just about to call him and that his father had just passed away. He was out on the golf course driving around a purple golf cart and the cart's brakes stopped working and he accidentally drove straight over a cliff. From that day forward, Jeremy is a full believer in the devil and in hell. He's told this story many times and thinks that when he received that unknown phone call, it was actually his dad calling him from hell. The devil was forcing him to call his son, and that maniacal laugh at the end of the call was the devil himself cackling at the entire situation. Jeremy hasn't come within a golf course ever since that call and refuses to. Golf carts, or frankly anything golf related, is strictly off limits for him because he believes if he sets foot inside or even sees a purple golf cart, that could be the end of him. And honestly, I know being scared of a purple golf cart sounds kind of ridiculous, but if I had got that phone call, then I'd be feeling the exact same way. Number 4 on this list is the afterlife texts. Joni Garther remembers February 18th, 2015 like it was yesterday. That was the day her mother died. She got a phone call from her father that her mother had been in a car accident and she was killed. Obviously, she was extremely distraught, but she became even more so when she received some text messages later that day. Hours after her mother was confirmed dead, she got some text messages from her mother's phone number. They read, "I have her now. She is burning. Her screams are comforting. Come scream with her, Joni." Yeah. Pretty unsettling, especially when this is coming from your dead mother's phone. They checked her mother's phone and nothing was there, no record of these messages at all. The police investigated, but they couldn't find anything significant either. Joni has never been able to get over those messages and they've haunted her for a long time. She's pretty sure that it was the devil messaging her and that her mother was with him. Number 3 on this list is The Vision of Tundale. The Vision of Tundale is actually a book that details the account of an Irish knight. This knight took a trip to hell for 2 days, and I can promise you aren't going to find his itinerary on TripAdvisor anytime soon. In his trip to hell, he discovered that the devil is clearly very hungry. The devil has it all laid out so that people are cooked into a stew. They're done so in many different ways, but the biggest method for cooking these humans is by throwing them into giant frying pans with hundreds of other humans and cooking them until they're burned to death. Think that's bad though? Well, it gets a lot worse, guys. There are demons that are constantly running around hell with the specific mission of harming and causing pain to the human souls. Killing them by cutting them into pieces and then using their powers to bring them back to life just so they can cut them into pieces again. It's brutal and it's what this place is doing all the time. Then there's the actual devil himself, or what this Irish knight thinks could have been the devil. Acheron is this giant monster that eats thousands of humans at a time. He's so big that these humans just fall into the deep pit that's his stomach and then get eaten by other beasts that are down there. Vipers and creatures that live inside this devil's stomach and wait to feast on these humans. If Acheron truly is the devil, then I highly recommend enjoying your time on Earth, because what comes next doesn't sound like the best time, folks. Number 2 on this list is Anne Catherine Emmerich. Anne Catherine Emmerich was born in 1774 and died in 1824, and she had quite a rough life while she was alive. During her time on Earth, she was constantly riddled with visions of hell. She saw so much of what is to come to those that sin that it felt as if she was living in hell while she was on Earth. Apparently hell is similar to what we've conventionally drawn up, but it isn't exactly how we've pictured it. According to Anne, hell is a city. Not a pristine and beautiful one, of course, a burned down, disgusting city. Like a city that's just been through a horrible battle and all that stands are the ruins of it. Running through that city are also some swamps. These swamps are home to horrible creatures that are always hungry, and you and your soul, they're on the menu. The most notable creatures to live here are snakes. They will slither out of their swamps and attack those who are in the city, so you always have to be careful. People are always screaming and fire is always burning, but the loudest and most uncomfortable scream comes from the devil himself. Anne saw the devil and he was chained up in the middle of the city. Yeah, that's right guys, apparently the devil himself is locked down here and screaming all the time to be set free. Which at this point, he might actually be. Anne said that she found evidence in her visions that the devil would be released upon the world of the living before the year 2000. Hate to break it to you guys, but it's currently 2022, so if Anne was telling the truth, then it's very possible the devil is already out and about. And finally, number 1 on this list is Father Gabriel Amorth. Father Gabriel Amorth, an expert when it comes to exorcisms, somebody with the capability of purging a demon over video chat, has come face to face with the devil. Being in the exorcism business means that you're going to be dealing with demons and devilish creatures pretty regularly. On one specific occasion, one that Father Gabriel Amorth will never be able to forget, he believes he saw the actual devil. The New York Post writes, in 1997, when a young, slim peasant man was escorted into the small room where Father Gabriel Amorth conducted his exorcisms in Rome, the priest felt immediately confronted by evil. Amorth said he asked for the help of Jesus, and the young man began to curse and spit using English instead of his native Italian. Amorth bellowed, "Whoever you are and all your companions who possess this servant of God, I command you, tell me your name, the day and the hour of your damnation." The man fixed him with a glare and snarled, "I am Lucifer." It was obviously at this point where Father Gabriel Amorth knew he was dealing with something pretty serious. The Post goes on to describe how, in return, the demon resumed his shrieks, making the possessed turn his head back and his eyes roll. He remained like this with his back arched for a quarter of an hour. As this continued, the room became extremely cold and ice crystals formed on the windows and the walls. As Amorth continually commanded the demon to leave the host, the young man's body stiffened so much that he became hard and began to levitate. For several minutes, he remained hovering 3 feet in the air. Finally, the man dropped into a chair. Amorth said he left for the day but continued to regularly visit the man and pray over him until he was met with no resistance. Amorth died back in 2016, but during his life he had performed tens of thousands of exorcisms. This is a man who has seen it all when it comes to demons and anything from hell. The fact that this one exorcism sticks out to him as being the moment he knew he'd seen the devil makes me believe it to be true. That overwhelming sense of evil that the room was filled with, I can't imagine how that must have felt. Part of me wants to know just so I can experience it as well, but as the father would go on to describe, moments like this when you come face to face with evil as dark as that, it changes you as a person forever. It happened to him, and I imagine if you or I saw the devil in person, it would happen to us as well. Number 5 on this list is Bill Wise. Now, it's unclear whether or not Bill saw the devil specifically, but he came pretty damn close. Bill is the writer of a book called 23 Minutes in Hell, which, as you guys can imagine, is his story of how he spent 23 minutes in hell. Wikipedia says Wise states that he had been a Christian since 1970 but had never studied hell before his experiences on the night of November 22nd, 1998. According to the book, Wise, then a real estate broker, found himself in a cell approximately 15 feet high and 10 feet by 15 feet in area where there were 2 foul-smelling beasts, personifications of evil and terror, who spoke in a blasphemous language. Wise says that the creatures had strength approximately 1,000 times greater than a man's strength. Wise states that he had heard the screams of the billions of damned people in hell. He states that he encountered Jesus, who told him to tell other people that hell is real. Y states that his first experience ended with him lying on the floor of his living room screaming in horror. Pretty frightening experience, and one that's changed Bill's life forever. Number 4 on this list is Marcus Stanik. Marcus Stanik claims that he saw the devil for real when he was only 10 years old. Back in 1982, Marcus was only 10 and he lived out in a farm in Missouri. His quiet little farm lifestyle was pretty much anything a kid could want. Even though his family had him put in a lot of work to keep things going, he had acres upon acres to run and play and do everything that a growing kid should love to do. One afternoon, he was doing just that. A few kilometers from the main farm was a forest. He would often go here when he had a long time to play. In that forest was a stream that cut through, and by the stream, Marcus had built himself a little fort, something that he had been working on all that summer. When he got there that day though, it wasn't how he left it. He arrived to his fort in a chipper spirit but quickly realized something wasn't quite right. His fort was ravaged, completely destroyed. It looked like something big had come through here and purposely wrecked it. And weirdest of all, there was this black liquid, almost sludge-looking substance that was on the remnants of his fort. He began to investigate, but suddenly everything went extremely cold. The air grew thick and there was a massive presence that appeared. Roughly 10 feet in front of Marcus was a dark, shadowy creature with black robes on, levitating above the ground. Bright red eyes pointed out of its shadowy face. The second he made eye contact with the being, he was no longer in control of his actions. His body wasn't his anymore. He fought for a while and tried to resist, but his body couldn't hold up and he blacked out. He woke up to a flashlight in his face and his mother's frantic voice calling out to him. It was hours later and he had been laying in the forest completely out cold since the encounter. He told his family about it, but they didn't quite believe him. They thought it must have just been a big animal that had frightened him. Marcus always knew though. That day he had seen the devil in person, and for some reason, it had let him live. Number 3 on this list is the purple golf cart. So I told this story in another video we did talking about the devil, but I have to tell it again considering how terrifying it actually is. Jeremy is a 31-year-old man who just over a decade ago lost his father. On that day, the one of the death though, he received a crazy message, one that haunts him to this day. It was early in the morning and Jeremy was on his way to work. His phone rang, he didn't know the number. Jeremy picked it up. He said hello. No response, the line was flat. He could tell that someone was on the other end, but they didn't say anything back. He said hello again. Nothing. He thinks, okay, butt dial, and is about to hang up when a muffled voice comes up. The voice sounded identical to his father's. His father's voice was soft and there was something wrong. It almost felt as if his father was being forced to speak. He told Jeremy to beware of the purple golf cart and that if he saw it, it meant that he was going straight to hell. Before Jeremy could ask any questions, a loud maniacal laugh was heard over the receiver and the phone hung up. He was rightfully freaked out at this point, so he quickly dialed up to his dad. No answer. Then he called his mother. She picked up and he heard sobbing. She told him that she was just about to call him and that his father had just died. He was out on the golf course driving around a purple golf cart and the cart's brakes stopped working. He accidentally drove straight off of a cliff. From that day forward, Jeremy is a full believer in the devil and in hell. He's told his story many times and thinks that when he received that unknown phone call, it was actually his dad calling him from hell. The devil was forcing him to call his son, and that maniacal laugh at the end of the call was the devil himself loving the brutality of it all. Jeremy hasn't come within a golf course ever since that call and refuses to. Golf carts, or frankly anything golf related, is strictly off limits for him. If he touches or even sees a purple golf cart, that could be the end. And honestly, I know being scared of a purple golf cart sounds kind of ridiculous, but if I got that phone call, then I'd be feeling the exact same way. Number 2 on this list is I can't wait. I can't wait. Those are the words that Serena heard back in 2011 when she had a face-to-face encounter with the devil. She was snorkeling out in Australia at the time. She was a regular and knew her way around the reef. This time though, she made an almost fatal mistake. She was stung by a creature that did not want to be disturbed. Her whole body froze up and it went into shock. Her one friend, who was snorkeling with her, noticed after a few minutes and dragged her to shore. At this point though, she had taken in so much water and the sting was really bad. She was fading very fast. While her friend called the ambulance and tried to get help, Serena was in her own world entirely. That world was hell. Serena traveled to hell and was standing on top of a mountain looking down at the flames and death below. People strung up getting abused by demons of all shapes and sizes. The torture was horrible and the screams were even worse. Shadow creatures flew and circled around the skies and clouds shot down lightning that was actually fire. It was truly hell being there. Then the entire world started to shift and a giant creature that Serena could only imagine was the devil took shape in the sky. It smiled and cackled and looked straight at her. Then it said, "I can't wait to meet you, Serena. See you very soon." And just like that, her eyes opened and she saw a paramedic reviving her on the beach. She had died for a little bit there and went to hell, and the devil himself stopped in to tell her how excited he was to meet her. Since then, Serena has quit snorkeling completely, probably for the best after an experience like that. And finally, number 1 on this list is the end. The devil has a lot of powers. We probably don't even know what they all are, to be honest, considering most people who deal with the devil don't last long enough to tell us about them. Either way, he is clearly a very powerful creature, and knowing when the world will end, that could be one of his capabilities. Well, apparently Bill Madigan had a run-in with him, and he told him just that. Bill was walking around the Black Forest in Germany, a haunted forest that we've actually talked a lot about on this channel before. He was hiking around when he saw some bright red glowing in the distance. He approached it and realized something was very wrong. He decided that he wanted to turn around and got a bad feeling, but his body actually wouldn't let him. His feet just kept walking in the direction of the light even though he wanted to stop. Finally, he got to the source of the light and he saw what he can only believe to be the devil performing some very sick and sadistic rituals that I can't even get into deep detail about because it's that bad. The devil looked at Bill right in his eyes and told him that he could take his life now, but instead of doing that, he wanted Bill to see his grand finale. He also told Bill that he wouldn't have to wait very long, only 2 decades from now his grand finale would be revealed. This happened back in 2016, so if we do the math, that would mean that the world might end in 2036. That doesn't leave us a whole lot of time, folks. Number 5 on this list is Weirdo. This one's a bit weird. Michelle Clark Miller says, "Not me, but my uncle's best friend actually went to hell. My uncle was a Vietnam vet and was still close with some members of his platoon. One of them, nicknamed Weirdo, had the usual problems with most traumatized vets. He drank, he did drugs, he beat on people. He'd been in and out of jail, in and out of rehab. Then one day he had a heart attack and died on the table. He said he woke up in a dark place full of volcanoes, swamps. He said it smelled awful and all you could hear was people screaming. He said he was full of fear, dread, and despair, but when he turned around to run, all he saw was fire, lava, smoke, and tar. Then he heard a man's voice say, 'You have one more chance, Jonathan.' That was his real name. Next thing he knew, he was in a hospital room surrounded by his wife, his Vietnam buddies, and their families. And yeah, he turned his life around. Yeah, I think my life would be 100% different if I straight up went to hell, saw the devil there, saw how bad hell actually was, and then had him tell me that if I don't figure it out, I'm basically gonna be here for all eternity. No, 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 no. Yeah, that would straight up traumatize me forever, guys. I think what's kind of crazy about this, though, is that he got a second chance. Like, you think about the devil, and you don't really think about the devil giving out a whole lot of second chances. Maybe he was just in a good mood or something. I don't know what it was, but hopefully Weirdo got the memo and doesn't need to go back there anytime soon. Number 4 on this list is your deepest desire. This is a story from a Quora user named JP. Somebody asked them if they had ever spoken to the devil and they replied, "I believe so. I woke up one morning facing the wall of my bedroom. Bed was pushed up against the wall. Rolled over the other direction and there standing in front of me was a guy just standing there. Wearing a suit, very typical of a well-dressed businessman. I was going through a rough time, personal stuff. He says one thing to me, 'I can give you what you want.' All while this is going on, I felt no worries or fear. It seemed oddly normal. My answer was, and still is, no. I did know what he was offering. I wanted it, but not for free. I had no belief one way or another about God at the time. I wouldn't say I didn't believe, I just never put much thought into religion. I can now say without a doubt God exists. Not because I've seen him or met him, but because I've met his enemy. My life has never been the same. I feel now without any choice of my own. I live with one foot in the spirit and one foot in the real world. Wish I could go back to being ignorant. And for that reason alone, I am happy to have never faced the devil head on like JP has. All innocence is gone from you after you see and hear something like that. Now you know that everything you do, you are being watched by the devil and also by God too. Pretty scary thing to wake up to there. Number 3 on this list is the exorcism. Stephen Rosetti is a priest and psychologist and is a well-respected member in the community, having appeared on many talk shows before. He's well known for performing an absolute boatload of exorcisms. Like, this dude knows how to exorcise a demon. In fact, Stephen performs roughly 20 exorcisms per week, and he has a literal whole crew that travels with him to help him do this. We're talking about the Drake of exorcist people here. Because he's so well known in this exorcist community, it's fair to assume that the demonic community, if there even is one of those, knows about him well and probably isn't too fond of him. Well, that has certainly been made abundantly clear, especially from the text messages that he received from potentially the devil. In one of his more recent exorcisms where he dealt with a teenage girl, the family of this girl, and him included, got some super scary and very threatening messages. The messages read, "Her torments start now, priests, all night. While you and that friend of yours sleep, we will make her bleed. We will make her blood." Yeah, so that's a big no-no from me, and definitely not the type of message I'd be wanting to receive. They aren't even done yet though, because then they go on to say, "We're glad she's away from you now." The weirdest part about this is that the messages came from that girl's phone, but when they looked on her phone to see, sure enough, the messages couldn't be found. Rosetti is pretty convinced that these messages were the work of the devil, or at the very least a high-ranking demon. Clearly, this girl is of some value to the devil in some capacity, and her soul has got to be harvested for some evil purpose. Stephen Rosetti took these messages from the devil super seriously and basically made it his mission to get this demon out. To my understanding, he did succeed, but I wouldn't be shocked if the devil came knocking again. Number 2 on this list is the Mercedes. This story is from a Reddit user when he was 20 years old, when he had what he describes to be the scariest encounter of his life with potentially the devil. Our protagonist decided to skip work this particular day and hang out with his girlfriend. They start their day off by heading to a bar and getting a drink. I must say, so far I'm pretty jealous of this guy. Anyways, when they arrive at the bar, it's empty. After a few minutes though, something super weird happens. A man, dressed very proper in a black suit, looking like a very serious fellow, enters the bar and then decides to sit directly between the pair of them. Yeah, pretty creepy considering the entire place is empty. So now they're separated by this dude, but before they say anything at all, the man starts running his fingers on the table. He does this in a way that hypnotizes both our guy and his girlfriend. Then this weird guy says, "I notice you're a man who pays attention to detail. I'm also a man who pays attention to detail." Our guy snaps out of his trance and then notices that this dude sitting between them has piercing gray eyes, long fingernails, and keeps licking his lips. At this point, he tells his girlfriend to go to the washroom. She does so immediately, also sensing that something might not be right. Right as his girlfriend leaves, the man turns to him and says, "You were supposed to go fishing today. If you had, I would have drowned you in that ocean. We've been watching you." At that moment, apparently the man then uttered some guttural shriek-like language that didn't make any sense. Our protagonist got up to leave at this point, but before he could, the man grabbed him and said that the next time you see me, I'll be in a black Mercedes and the license plate will say Utopia. To this day, he is deathly scared of Mercedes cars and even looking at the license plate of any vehicle, swearing that he saw the devil that day back in the bar. And finally, number 1 on this list is the bus rider. A young girl named Victoria was just trying to get home one evening when she believed she was confronted by the devil. She just finished working a long shift at her restaurant and was waiting for the bus. She got on and moved to the back. At the back of the bus though, there was a very strange looking man. He was muttering to himself and acting rather crazy. crazy. Now, this isn't completely uncommon on public transit. I feel like we've all been on a bus with a crazy dude before, but this was a little different. His mannerisms didn't look human, and the words he was saying, they didn't make any sense. Then, all of a sudden, he started screaming and the lights on the bus flickered. The bus pulled to the side of the road, and Victoria and the few other people on board quickly got off, but so did this man. Right as the bus pulled off, luckily another bus on the same route was only a stop behind. It pulled up and everybody got on, but Victoria was too late. The bus was trying to trap the crazy man out, but in the process also trapped out her. Now it was just her, this man, and the other bus driver on the original bus late at night on the side of the road. She then tried to make a beeline for the other original bus, but the crazy man stepped in front of her. He grabbed both of her arms and his eyes rolled to the back of his head. She was squirming and trying to break free, but she couldn't. Then his mouth opened far wider than it ever should be able to, and inside his mouth she saw the face of the devil. It said to her, "Eat my blood, Victoria. Your flesh will be succulent milk." She screamed in terror, and right as she did so, the original bus driver came to her rescue and smacked the crazy man across the head. The pair ran onto the original bus and drove away. After that evening, she never took the bus again and constantly lives in fear of the devilish bus rider. Number 5 on this list is Jennifer Perez. Jennifer is currently on, I think, what a lot of people would describe as a good path, but it wasn't always that way. For a while there, Jen was going down a really bad path. Drugs and alcohol and depression, they ran her life, and things, they weren't looking too bright for Jennifer. In fact, it got so bad that one evening in the early 2000s, her body couldn't hold up anymore. And she died. It was in that time of death that she visited hell and saw the actual devil. Now, it didn't start out like that. Apparently her heart stopped and the first place she went was heaven. However, she wasn't allowed into heaven. The way she ran her life and the neglect that she had shown to her relationships was not going to grant her passageway. So they sent her down to hell. It was a horrible place, she said. As she fell from heaven's gates, it got hotter and hotter and hotter. The heat was unbearable and the air was filled with an intense smell of sulfur. Then she saw the people. Thousands upon thousands of them getting brutally tortured by all kinds of demons in all kinds of horrific fashions. And at the heart of it all, a massive red creature who she assumed must have been the devil. Eyes glaring, watching over all of it, almost like the way Sauron watches over things in The Lord of the Rings. Before she hit the hot hellish ground though, she woke up. She was revived, and her life was saved. From that point on, she has completely changed her way of life and tried to do everything in her power to never end up in that horrible place again with the devil watching over all of it. I imagine that if I ever saw the devil up close and personal like that, I might change my way of living as well. Number 4 on this list is Cpin. Cpin is a Reddit user who believes that several years ago they saw a demon, or maybe even the devil, in their own home. They write, "When I was about 17, I woke up in the middle of the night thirsty and I went into the kitchen to get some water. When I walked into the kitchen and flipped on the light, I saw what I can only describe as a large golem-looking creature. It looked me in the face and then screeched, a noise I will never forget, and then crawled on the walls into the unlit part of the house. Well, I wasn't sleeping or dreaming. I ran into my room and turned on music and did not sleep the rest of the night. I've only told a handful of people about it, and yes, I'm completely serious." I've never heard of the devil as being a golem creature, but it's certainly not impossible. What the devil would have been doing in your home, clutching your ceiling in the middle of the night, now, that's a better question. Personally, this probably rings closer to a demon than the actual devil himself. No disrespect to Cpin here, but unless there is something particularly special about him, his family, or his home, then I don't really see why the devil would have been there. But then again, why is the devil doing anything that he's doing? Why would a demon have been there? There are a lot of questions involved in this story, and obviously Sim wasn't in a position to be able to ask when he ran into this thing at the time. At least it stayed in the kitchen and didn't follow him upstairs. Number 3 on this list is the Daevas. The Daevas actually come from the religion Zoroastrianism and are part of that religion's demonic entities. If you're unfamiliar with that religion, then just know that it is one of the oldest religions ever and is still being practiced today. Well, there are tons of messages in scripture and artwork for describing these demons that basically act as warning messages to all who may have the misfortune of running into them. Grunge says, traditionally Daevas are thought to be the creation of Ahriman, an antagonist and equally powerful counterpart to the benevolent creator. In one of their religious texts, the Gathas, Daevas are described as rejected gods with an affinity for evil who, for whatever reason, still hold sway with some followers. One of their chief character traits is an inability to discern truth from lies, making them at least psychologically adjacent and possibly directly related to most roommates that you've likely met on Craigslist. All kidding aside though, these things can be very, very dangerous, and many people believe that a lot of the work and scripture that talks about them, that was actually left behind from the devil. Purpose of doing this was to strike fear into people and make them start to distrust their fellow human. Number 2 on this list is the Blood Falls. Once again, we have a naturally occurring wonder that people believe is actually a hidden message from the devil. Let me tell you the geological explanation of this, and then I'll tell you the possible demonic explanation. Atlas Obscura says, roughly 2 million years ago, the Taylor Glacier sealed beneath it a small body of water, which contained an ancient community of microbes. Trapped below a thick layer of ice, they have remained there ever since, isolated inside a natural time capsule. Evolving independently of the rest of the living world, these microbes exist in a place with no light or free oxygen and little heat, and are essentially the definition of primordial ooze. The trapped lake has very high salinity and is rich in iron, which is what gives the waterfall its red color. A fissure in the glacier allows the subglacial lake to flow out, forming the falls without contaminating the ecosystem within. So that's the geological explanation. The one involving the devil isn't as calm and cool though. This legend says that a man died and was sent to hell. Now he got there and obviously didn't love where he was. The man was continuously tortured and mistreated, as we can all expect from being in hell. Well, apparently this particular man wasn't about staying here forever. One day he attempted a daring escape and actually made it pretty far. He found a gateway between hell and the natural world. This gateway led directly to Antarctica, where the falls are now. He made it back to our physical world, but then the devil showed up. The devil brutally mutilated and cut the man to pieces, creating a waterfall of blood. The devil then sealed this blood in ice as a warning and message to everyone left on Earth never to attempt to go in or out of hell. Finally, number 1 on this list is the Codex Gigas. This book often makes all of our lists when we're talking about the most haunted or most cursed books ever, and rightfully so. This book, written many, many years ago, was literally by the hand of the devil. Mental Floss says the book's sinister reputation stems from a full-color portrait of the devil contained in its pages and a legend about how the image got there. According to folklore, the book is the work of a monk, possibly Hermanus Hermitas or Herman the Recluse, who had broken his vows and been sentenced to be walled up alive in the monastery. He struck a deal to save himself. If, over the course of a single night, he could write a book containing all the world's knowledge, his life would be spared. When he realized the task was impossible, the monk sold his soul to the devil, who helped him finish the book and signed it with the now infamous portrait. Now, I'd love to tell you guys what message the devil left for us in here, but that would require me to read the book myself, which I have absolutely no intention of ever doing. Legends have been told of people becoming insane and losing their minds and all sense of reality after reading it. So, even if I did read it with the intention of relaying the messages to you guys, I don't know if I'd even be capable of doing so. It's been kept in Sweden's National Library and has been there for several hundred years if you guys wanted to go and give it a read. I don't recommend it. Number 5 on this list is the Devil's Town. The Devil's Town is a place in Serbia that's basically a collection of very interesting natural forming rocks, or at least we think it's natural forming. Mehana Mihajovic says the Devil's Town is one of the widely known places in Serbia. Situated between 2 ravines of the creepy names the Devil's Ravine and Hell's Ravine, there lies the spookiest natural monument. Over 200 randomly formed stone poles up to 20 meters in height. Almost all the poles carry the black cap from volcanic rock andesite, adding to the overall peculiar atmosphere around the place. Close to the locality, there are fresh mineral water wells and ruins of an old church. The mysticism of the Devil's Town Natural Monument keeps fueling the imagination of the local people. One of the widely known legends suggests that a long time ago, local people threw a wedding party for a brother and a sister that fell in love with little help from the devil's spells. God wanted to punish all the attendees and turned them into the stones where they still lay to this day. The other legend suggests that the devil's poles are actually local kids who refused to learn and decided to live an immoral life stripped of knowledge. It sure sounds like a great way to make your kids do their homework. So regardless of which legend you choose to believe in, this is evidence that the devil was once around here. As far as what sort of message this leaves behind, I guess you need to be the one to decide, right? Is this a way for the devil to just reinforce his legitimacy? Is this a way for the devil to instill fear in people? Is this a way for the devil to tell us that we should actually be fearing God? These are all interesting things to consider and think about when we're talking about the devil's town. I will say something and give the devil a little credit. If these rocks were actually formed by him and some devilish activity, then honestly, nice work, man. They're very cool and made a strong push to become part of the 7 natural wonders of the world. Maybe people decided to leave them out of that list though, because promoting something created by the devil himself might not be the best idea. Comment down below what you guys think this weird and creepy formation of rocks could truly mean. Number 4 on this list is Hotel California. Hotel California is right up there as being one of rock's best songs ever. I feel like I have a very special connection to the Eagles classic because I remember in 10th grade or sometime in high school, I had to do a project breaking down a classic song and looking at the lyrics and really evaluating them. I decided to do mine on Hotel California, and it was through this project that I learned something very interesting about this piece of music. Hotel California may have been partly written by the devil. Thoman says it's not only on Halloween that you can expect the devil to be up to no good in the background. For example, with the super hit Hotel California by the Eagles, when played in reverse, the secret message says, "Satan, he hears this. He had me believe, incredible or verifiable." Was the ruler of hell involved making the Eagles' greatest hits album the best-selling album of the 20th century in the US? Now this is the message you get when you play it backwards, but you don't even need to play it backwards to get some pretty weird messages just listening to it in general. The whole song itself is a complete trip. One line in the song says, "This could be heaven or this could be hell." Another line says, "We are all just prisoners here of our own device." And finally the song finishes by saying, "You can check out any time you like, but you can never leave." The whole song itself could be one big metaphor for hell, let alone the secret message in the song that you hear when you listen to it in reverse. What do you guys think? Was this actually the work from the devil? Number 3 in this list is Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ was a very real dude, and he definitely lived one heck of a life. Now, he may not have actually seen the devil necessarily, but he definitely saw hell and all of its horrible details. There's a text called the Apocalypse of Peter that is written by the disciple Peter and describes the divine visions that Christ had of hell. Wikipedia says, the work details both heavenly bliss for the saved and infernal punishments for the damned. In particular, the punishments are graphically described in a physical sense and generally correspond to lex talones. Blasphemers are hung by their tongues, liars who bear false witness have their tongues set on fire eternally, callous rich people are made to wear rags and be pierced by sharp stones as would beggars, and so on. Yeah, so even though Jesus didn't necessarily see the devil, he saw what the devil was up to, and none of it's pretty good. I don't know about you folks, but I like my tongue the temperature that it's currently at, and having it lit on fire for eternity doesn't really sound like the best way to spend my time. It's no wonder Jesus preached so much about love and God and everything. My dude literally saw what was going to happen to all of us if we didn't do any of that. Jesus straight up knew that the devil was just waiting for the moment your soul passed over to hang you by your tongue and torture you forever. Number 2 on this list is Patrick Antle. Patrick had a horrifying encounter with a demon several years back when he was 17. He's 23 now, but it's taken him that long to even speak about the event that transpired. At the time, he lived with his parents in Cincinnati. One evening, Patrick decided to sneak out and go to a local high school party. The sneaking out process worked out fine and he made it to the party safely. It was on his way back though that he had the scariest moment of his life. He was walking back the way he came to go back home a little bit past 2 a.m. The area that he was in was rural and there weren't too many houses that he passed by. However, when he turned down the second last street before his own, he saw a house on the side of the road. It's a house. This shouldn't be anything serious, but what struck him as being weird was that he'd never seen that house before. Now, Patrick had been drinking a little bit that evening, so he just chalked it up to being a little bit drunk and kept walking down the street. When he was passing right in front of this house though, he stopped and glanced at it and noticed the garage door was open. Only a few seconds had passed when out of the darkness of the garage door, 2 red glowing eyes appeared in the night. His body immediately froze, and even though his mind was telling him to run, his limbs didn't want to cooperate. Standing stuck in the middle of the road, paralyzed, Patrick got struck with an overwhelming fear that his life might end right there, right then. The eyes dug into his skull and felt as if they were infiltrating his soul. Then he heard a voice. A voice that wasn't coming from the garage, but one that was actually coming right out of his own head. The voice was a deep, guttural snarl that said, "Turn away now or your body will burn in the deep fires of hell and your soul will be tormented for eternity." The message ended and his body hit the ground. He didn't take any time to think about what had happened, but just got up, ran home as fast as he could. It took him several weeks to work up the courage, but eventually he went back to that road and saw that the house that he had seen that evening wasn't there anymore. To this day, he has no idea what happened to him or who that was, but he believes that there is a really strong possibility that he encountered the devil and for some reason, it decided to let him live. And finally, number 1 on this list is Sister Joseph Menades. Born in 1890 and only living 33 years, Sister Joseph Menades saw her fair share of hell. She was constantly bombarded with visions of hell and the devil himself. So much so that she wrote about this in a book called The Way of Divine Love. The purpose of the book was to lead people away from hell and the devil, but writing it must have been difficult because she would have ran into Satan himself way too many times. Eternally burning fire and dark, never-ending corridors. That's what she saw hell to be filled with. All the souls and people who were sent there, the devil would suck the capability of love and compassion from them so that they could no longer feel any positive emotions at all. It was just depression and grief for those that got sent here. The devil was a dark creature in her visions who would eat these happy emotions up but not feel any of them himself. She saw these visions and warned us about them so that we wouldn't have to see them. I recommend heeding her warning.